Can I re-implement some source code that was open sourced so that I can use it without the restrictions of the original license? So this is an excellent question. Imagine that there was an open source software project that you liked and they did something really clever, but the open source license had requirements that you could not comply with. But you didn't want to start from scratch, so you look at the source code to see how it works. Oh, good. Okay. So now, can you go back, close that document out, and then rewrite something from scratch that works in about the same way? And the answer is probably no. Not definitely no, probably no. So once you've looked at something and then you go recreate it, you are probably creating what is called a derivative work. And a derivative work is subject to the copyright of the original creator and the new creator. And so you would have copyright to the things that are specific about your code, but also too, it's possible that the creators of the code that inspired you would also have some copyright over your new creation. And that means that the license might also apply to your code. This is definitely problematic for many people. And so if you're in this situation, I'm very, very sorry, but this is difficult. There is a way around it. And famously, the personal computer era is kind of founded on an example of this happening. So the original IBM PCs were amazing devices, and they used a lot of off-the-shelf components, Intel CPUs, DRAM modules, all of these things that you could buy from an electronics store. But if someone went out and bought all of these pieces and put them together, they wouldn't have a PC because there was a special chip called a BIOS chip that had software that ran on it. And that was kind of the mix master that coordinated all of the different components talking to each other. And the software on that BIOS chip was copyrighted by IBM. And if you didn't have that chip, then your computer would not run software compatible with PCs. Some people downloaded the software off of the chip and created new chips. They just outright copyrighted it. Stole it, and then what's it called? I can't think of the word now. But duplicated it. This is clearly copyright violation, and lawsuits against those people held up. But then a famous company called Compaq, they created their own version of the source code. They never looked at the code from IBM's BIOS chip. Instead, what they did is if I send in this signal, then I get that signal. Okay, then if I send in this signal, then I get that signal. And so they tested every possible combination that they could think of, and then they wrote their own software without having ever seen the original that did the necessary translations, and then they created it into their own BIOS chip. At that point, they could then buy all the components that were in a PC, put them together with their BIOS chip, and sell a PC-compatible computer. IBM, of course, sued them and lost. And the court said, they didn't copy the code. They did a black box re-engineering of that code. So the difference between looking at someone's source code and re-implementing it is that you have seen that copyrighted content, and so you've kind of been tainted by it. You can't then create a copy that is not a derivative. Versus in this Compaq scenario, they never looked at the source code. They only looked at the inputs and the outputs, and then they created something new, completely new from scratch that did the same thing. That is a reverse engineering, and that helps you avoid copyright. So sometimes what we have seen people do is they have one person who is not going to make a contribution to the future project, look at the open source software, see what it does, and then tell another person about it without telling them how it works, and then letting them implement a solution. Okay, good, except this is a big problem. Now you might be violating a patent because algorithms and such can be patented, and they might actually be patented after you copy them. So there might not be a patent available to look at and compare when you do your black box reengineering, but later you might be infringing on someone's patent because it might be in the process, which can be very, very time consuming. So you do have to be careful about doing this. My advice to you is just invent your own stuff or use open source software in a way that is compatible with their licenses. If you need help being compatible with open source licenses, I would love to help you. I would love it. So please call me.